We all want to help the planet. But what if our best intentions could actually cause harm to the very communities we're trying to support? It's a tough question. So today, let's dive into a really powerful framework designed to prevent exactly that, to make sure our efforts to help the Earth are safe, fair, and truly good for everyone involved.
Everything, and I mean everything, starts right here with this one core principle: do no harm. It sounds simple, but it's incredibly profound. Before we even think about doing good, we have to commit, first and foremost, to preventing any bad outcomes. This isn't just a nice idea. It's the absolute bedrock of this entire approach.
And that brings us to the big question, right? How do we actually do this? How can we design these big, ambitious conservation projects that lift up both ecosystems and people, making sure that one doesn't come at the expense of the other? It's a huge challenge, and it needs a really smart, structured solution. So, to answer that, we have to start by being honest. We have to acknowledge a difficult truth. If we look back, historically, not all conservation work has been a win for local communities. Understanding that context, that history, is the very first step toward building something much, much better.
And when you look, it's pretty clear that certain groups have often been left out of the conversation, or worse, been negatively impacted. We're talking about women, young people, the elderly, indigenous groups, people with disabilities. The list goes on. When these voices aren't heard, projects don't just fail, they can actually make existing inequalities even worse. The human stakes here are just incredibly high.
So let's get super clear on what do no harm really means here. This isn't a passive thing. It's not just about not intending to cause trouble. It is an active commitment to look at the situation and make sure your actions don't reinforce existing problems, either by leaving people out or just by not paying enough attention. It's about being intentional.
Okay, so how do you turn a principle like that into a real system? Well, this is where it gets really cool. The source material gives us this brilliant metaphor to make it all feel concrete. Think of it as building a safe house. It's literally a blueprint for protection.
And here it is, the safe house. What's so smart about this is that every piece of the house is a layer of safety. You've got the foundation, which is your core policies. Then you build the walls with key standards, like labor rights. You need doors and windows so the community can actually get in and participate. You need alarms and escapes, ways for people to raise concerns safely. And holding it all together is the roof, your oversight and constant improvement. It all works together to create a truly protective system.
Now, building this house isn't something you do once and then walk away. It's a journey, a process. The work actually evolves through 3 different stages, taking you from just following the basic rules all the way to fundamentally changing the system for the better.
So here's how that journey breaks down. You start with compliance. These are the absolute, non-negotiable basics to simply do no harm. From there, you move up to equality, where you're actively working to make sure everyone can participate in a meaningful way. But the ultimate goal? That's equity, where you're actually getting at the root causes and transforming the deep-seated power structures that create inequality in the first place.
But here's the thing. You can't start this journey if you don't know where you are on the map. And that means this whole process demands some serious, honest self-assessment. An organization has to be willing to look in the mirror and ask, where are we really on this path from just complying to creating real equity?
A perfect blueprint is one thing, but we all know the real world is, well, it's messy. So how does this ideal safe house actually stand up when it meets the complexities of the real world? This is where that idea of principle meets pragmatism.
Look, this framework doesn't exist in a vacuum. Its success is going to depend on a ton of factors on the ground. You've got local laws, social norms, whether you can even get to a remote village, and of course an organization's own internal culture and, let's be honest, its budget. All of these things can either help you or get in your way. You just can't ignore them.
And this slide right here, it just nails the balancing act that's required. The ideal is on the left, but the reality often requires what's on the right. Sometimes pushing for that perfect system in a really sensitive setting could actually put people at risk. The message is clear. It is so much better to do a few things well and safely than to try and build a system that looks perfect on paper but just shatters under real-world pressure.
This brings us to what might be the most critical idea of all. This isn't a checklist you complete. It's not a certificate you hang on the wall and you're done. Building a truly safe space for people and the planet is an ongoing, living, breathing commitment. The work is never, ever finished.
So what's the tool for this ongoing work? It's often something called a Gender Action Plan, or GAP. Think of it as the project's living playbook. It's used for everything from analyzing the context to planning actions, budgeting, and monitoring progress. And the key phrase here is living document. This isn't a report that sits on a shelf gathering dust. It's meant to be constantly reviewed and updated as things change.
Of course, trying to keep this up forever is tough. There are some huge, real-world challenges, like what happens when the project funding ends? What do you do when your partners aren't quite on the same page? The answer lies in being transparent, in leading by example, and in trying to see this work not as just one project, but as part of a much bigger social movement.
And that's really what it all comes down to. The goal isn't just to have a perfect set of rules written down somewhere. It's to build a living, breathing culture within an organization and its community, a practice that makes a real, tangible, positive difference in the lives of actual people.
This whole framework is so powerful, and it kind of leaves us with one last big thought. This idea of building a safe house, with a solid foundation, protective walls, and clear escape routes, it's not just for conservation projects, is it? So the question to leave you with is, where else in our work, in our communities, in our world, do we need to start building one?